Hello and welcome to Fresh Off the Dome, your topic-based podcast where it's all killer, no filler, just a topic, and that's about it. I can't think of anything more clever to do with this intro anymore. I am your host, Brian Nabeshin Jackson, joined by Andrew Taylor.
Hey.
And Barrett Courtney.
Hello there.
And this is a discussion just about the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general. It's been 10 years. Infinity War just came out. We all have our thoughts on that. And of course, we'll share those. So, we're just going to be completely open about everything as far as that. So, don't have to worry about holding back about what you feel about anything as far as that. And, but we're going to talk about this, unique journey that all three of us went through. Where we went through for, the last 17 or 18 weeks of just, rewatching the entire thing, the entire MCU all over again. And I just want to share those thoughts again, and share our just share our feelings about how we think about where it came from and where it is at now, how it was for you at the time and where you think about it now, and just just
a good retrospective on the entire MCU.
Yeah. So give me your thoughts, boys. That's an overall view right now. Andrew, what do you think?
So yeah, we kind of discussed this the other day when we were doing the spoiler cast for OK Beast. But yeah, it's been 10 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. I remember when I first saw the first Iron Man movie in theaters, and I remember being like, that was a really good superhero movie, and then I stayed for after the credits, and that was something I never really did before. And then, lo and behold, there was a secret stinger there at the end, and it was Nick Fury being like, yo, the Avengers are a thing. Well, are hoping to be a thing. So, obviously, Marvel was kind of banking a lot on that at the time. So, but look where look where we are now. This movie, Infinity War, has made, a shit ton of money, biggest, domestic, worldwide, or whatever, opening ever. So that's pretty impressive. Looks like Marvel's gamble paid off, so that's pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, after the 17 weeks that we've been rewatching these movies, it's so interesting to go back and look at all these different stories that have been told, and kind of the perspective that because a lot of the movies have different directors, obviously, but it's cool to see those different stories being told by different crews, directors, writers, all that kind of stuff, and then it all coming full circle in Infinity War. So it really is something that I personally haven't seen before done in a movie, and it's kind of it's hard to think about. It's hard to be like, wow, this actually, it's just a superhero movie, obviously, but in terms of cinematic history or whatever, it's never really been done before, so it's really cool to think about something like that. But yeah, it's been a trip, that's for sure.
Barrett, share your thoughts, man.
It was interesting to go through all of these movies a second or third time around. I feel like I've rewatched a lot of these movies, always building up to Avengers 2 and Civil War. I think the last time we rewatched the movies was when we were leading up to Civil War. So it was cool to have a couple of years apart from these movies and to go back to them and sort of realize of oh yeah, Iron Man 3 was a really good movie. And even though Iron Man 2 is the worst Iron Man movie, it's still really fun. And there's a lot of you can tell a lot of these different artists, sort of as a general word for all of these people who worked on these movies, just see them have fun, and you really start to feel that in phase 3, that they just sort of went off the rails with what Marvel, I think, originally intended for, to sort of stick to this one sort of ride and just try to bank off of that. But I think they realized after Avengers 2, or maybe even mid Avengers 2, we gotta start putting more of our trust with these artists, especially after they came off with the huge success of Winter Soldier and Guardians, how well received they were. And I think those were the two movies that if Guardians didn't succeed and wasn't received the way it was, I feel like phase 3 would be very forgettable, and phase 3 would probably be very safe. But you see that like they saw, they're like, oh, like we went away from, like we went on our own path here and it worked out tremendously for us. Let's try to keep doing that, you know? And so they continued down the Cap road where they're like making like cool, like even though Civil War was way more like blockbustery, there was still like this unique element to a comic book movie where it still felt like, you know, so like espionage, sort of like that kind of style of a movie, like 80s spy almost, and just with like the follow-up to Guardians and how crazy Ragnarok is, and like them actually like going all out in a Black Panther story and giving probably like one of the most like emotional stories in that movie. You know, I feel like we might have still gotten Black Panther, but I don't know if they would have let someone like Ryan Coogler take over and like really like put his fingerprints all over that if, you know, if Guardians and Winter Soldier didn't pan out like they did. It's really cool to sort of go back and relive all these movies and in the ups and downs. Like it was fascinating to watch Thor 2 again and to watch Incredible Hulk, which I hadn't watched in probably since around the time Incredible Hulk originally came out. But it's cool to see this journey and to like see that it is paying off in a huge way. Like Andrew said, it's already the biggest weekend opening of all time.
Opening weekend. Yep.
And I'm crossing my fingers that will finally dethrone Avatar as the highest grossing movie of all time, because it still blows my mind that Avatar is still the highest grossing movie of all time. And it's cool that we as nerds get to celebrate this. I just did my second viewing of Infinity War earlier today, and like the opening night, we were surrounded by fellow nerds who were like super into it. And this morning we did like a 12 p.m. matinee, so it's like a bunch of old people and kids and whatnot. And it was interesting. Like we sat next to this couple, and at the end, spoiler territory for Infinity War, the post-credits scene teases Captain Marvel and her logo pops up, and the dude next to me was like, no one knows who that is, blah 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 blah. I was like, if you're not a if you're a jackass, I guess you don't know who that is. But like, if you actually care about this shit, like we've known that a Captain Marvel movie has been coming for years. Like, yeah, we know who that is. So it was that him saying that really reminded me of like, you're just a douche and we get it. So whatever. It just reminded me that like, we're lucky to have this, and we're lucky to like not only have it, but to have it and for it to be good, you know? Like,
yes.
That's the thing that's really special about these movies is like we technically have it with Justice League, and like the DC movies, but those will never be at the scale of the MCU. So I don't know. It's been cool to sort of go back to everything and really appreciate like how it all built to this.
And I think that's the biggest thing too, is that like we are lucky, and we're so lucky that it's actually good and decent and not like betraying anything that we actually know of these characters or what we like previously established with these characters. I mean, unless you want to get fucking angry about skin color or some bullshit like that, but like you know, like for something to be so faithful to like what you know, and then to actually be good and given it to the right people for the most part, for like all for the movies, and like being something on the big screen, you're just like, yes, I fucking love this. Like it's insanity, and it's like it feels so good, and I think that's the thing I think it really needs to be said is like, it feels so good to have something that like you care about so much, like where you read it from the comics or you watched it from the old cartoons or something like that, and like have it to be like having something new being put into it, and like still being just as good, if not better, than what you know of it. And like, you know, like I'm not necessarily a comic book fan, but like you know, like I watched like the Spider-Man cartoon, I watched the X-Men cartoon, and like even the old Fantastic Four cartoon, and like I know who Iron Man is because of that. And like I remember like what was it, like the Spider-Man Wars or something like that, where he like had to get up a whole bunch of people together. You got Iron Man and Storm and the Lizard for some reason. Like you got them all together. So like to do that war, and you know, like it's like, oh, I know who that person is, and then like to see him on the big screen, like to actually like be something even better than what I got to know him for, is like it's crazy to me. It's crazy. And like and it's one of those things too, like around, like I say about like Phase 2, like we were kind of taking for granted, where it was like yeah, these movies are coming out, and like yeah, Ant-Man's coming out, and like it's good, but like you know, like it could be better, and like sure it can, and like, but I think they've earned a lot. They've earned a lot of faith. They earned a lot of trust, and like for it to deliver on that in almost every facet with Infinity War, it's like, it's crazy to me that it's that good. And like I can't speak enough about that. Like it makes me smile, and it's crazy. Like it's like it's the exact opposite I felt about like a Justice League. It's like because like it, like for Justice League to be good for the people who like that movie, it has to betray everything that it was, and so that doesn't make sense continuity wise, and like it just fucks up everything. So like anyway, I don't want to like bash that movie any more than we already have. Me and Barrett have. So
yeah, it's already on a bashing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things that like, even though some of these movies like didn't really pay off, like, you know, there's the big ones like Thor 2, Incredible Hulk, Age of Ultron, that were like definitely like disappointments in ways, but like still overall it's incredible. Like the reason why this movie works so well, the reason why Civil War works so well, is because they invested time. You know, like we're talking about like this. It's been 10 years since Iron Man, and it's been, now with this movie, it's been 19 movies, and so we've got to, you know, spend so much time that like, even though going into it, I knew Infinity War wasn't going to be the movie where we get like character growth or anything, because it's not that kind of movie. It's just a reason to have all these characters like finally come together, and it works so well because you've already learned to care about them from other movies, and that's why like when you see them come together, it feels great, because there's a dedication to time to grow them before we do all of the crazy CGI battles and whatnot, you know. And that's, you know, I don't think Justice League has gotten enough bashing, where they're trying to, like, Batman v Superman and Justice League were trying to be like almost like Phase 3 movies, when you know they didn't invest the time. And that's where, like, even though we got like some duds in these 19 movies, there's still like some fun parts from every single movie, and it's really cool to see like how much they were really investing into the slow. They were playing the slow game here, and it really paid off, and it's really cool to see that come to fruition.
Yeah, I think that's why the more I think about it, the more I like Infinity War, is because what it does is that it trusts you to have seen all the movies that have come before it. And that's why the payoff is so good. Like, because like Barrett, like you said, there is no like really character growth or anything like that, because you've seen all the movies that come before. I mean, obviously Thanos, you know, you're getting to know his character because we've only seen like 5 minutes of him maybe total.
Yeah.
You know, the whole 19 movies. But I think that's why it works so well, is because Marvel is like, well, you've seen everything else. We don't need to hold your hand for this. And then that's why like this whole movie is just like mind-blowing to me, because I for once with a superhero movie, I'm not getting a lot of exposition on what's exactly happening, because I already know it. I already know everything that's happening. So I think that's why it works out so well.
Like, it was interesting. Sorry, but I know I'm going to forget this. Max Scoville had tweeted earlier about like how these movies are no longer movies. They're serials. They're like, this is almost like these movies are now working in like a TV format where you have to see them all, and you have like you can't just like randomly pop into one. And it's like, he was talking about it on his tweet how he wasn't a huge fan of that, but I thought about it. It's like he's right, but I think that's impressive of like how they're able to turn this movie series into a TV format and have it work and click and resonate with people. And it's this entire universe is, I feel like, very like this will be one of the like most important moments in, I think, movie history, because I think it might sort of change the way people do movies and do franchises. Like we've already seen people try to do it, and hopefully, like in the future, people will try to do their own universes and make it a little smarter and not DC. So, and also the one other universe that the evil people. The universe where like the Mummy is when
the
with
Dark
like,
World,
the dark
remember
universe?
that universe? Remember when they announced that? Yeah, that's fucking dumb. So like, but I do think like other studios are really trying to figure it out, and I think moving forward, I think some other franchises might be able to figure it out, because it's just nothing is bigger than Marvel right now, and like they found this formula, and it just. I don't know, like I think it was a lot of luck and a lot of great marketing, and like eventually some fucking actually like great movies. Not to say that like movies like Iron Man or the Avengers weren't great, but like I think the level of quality behind movies like Winter Soldier and Black Panther are like were mind blowing for comic book movies. Like people like. I myself am a fan of The Dark Knight. That's like one of my favorite movies of all time. And those movies is like, I feel like surpassed that because they were truer to the comics, I feel like, than The Dark Knight ever was, but still some made them like films almost. And they had like a great balancing act between those two things. And that's why like I always look to like those two as like the great sort of examples of what comic book movies should be. So yeah,
and then like in all due respect to Max, like I feel like you can have both things. Like I think both those things can exist, where like something could just be just for people who made the investment for it.
Yeah.
Like kind of like Metal Gear Solid 4. Like that game does not work unless you play the other other Metal Gear games. And like, but like if you are a person who played those games and you play 4, it's the most mind blowing, amazing thing you ever played, because that game earns it because you went through you did your homework and you did that and you played that game, and it's like just a super deep immersive experience, and there's nothing else like that game. Because of that, because of the stuff you had to go through to do that. And like some people could say like the same thing for like Batman v Superman, where it's like, oh, if you read the comics, like that movie would make a little bit more sense, but like that's still like grasping for straws, and you're talking about like maybe like going through like so many different versions of comics for different art styles and different things compared to like going through like a cinematic universe, like a continuity is like the biggest thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I really respect and what I really love about it. Because like I said earlier on when we were talking about it on OKB, so it was like this reminds me of like when the DC animated universe, where it was like from Batman the animated series to Superman the animated series to Justice League to Static Shock to Batman Beyond to Justice League Unlimited. They all fit together. And sure, there's some like rewrites and stuff like that, or like retcons, thank you.
Yeah.
For like certain things and certain aspects of it, but like for the most part, like it's all there, and it's all like the same voice actors doing the same roles that they've been doing for like over 10 years through that whole thing. And like I have a collection of all that stuff because like it matters to me, and it's fucking good. And that's why I just love it because of that. But yeah, so I wanted to ask you guys about like we're so far from it now, but like what is the quote unquote Marvel formula now?
Like within a movie itself, or as a whole? Like
yeah, like what would you say? Like because they say like we heard this for years, and like we've seen it ourselves, but like I don't know what it is anymore, if it even is a thing anymore, because like what is the Marvel formula in your eyes, at least?
I don't know, Andrew, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, no, it's a hard question to answer. I was thinking about this the other day in terms of, I don't know about the formula right now, but like all the way, like probably up to Winter Soldier, it's pretty like clear like what they're doing. I mean, it's all just character growth. I mean, it's giving the character a villain to go up against and them just beating them. That's really what it is. But I feel like once they hit like Winter Soldier, they were like, okay, well, let's take a risk here, and then let's throw in one of the biggest twists that I didn't even know that was going to happen. Like that's my biggest question before I saw Winter Soldier. I was like, what's gonna like? Is he just gonna fight Winter Soldier the whole time? Is there like not another bad guy? And then it just turns out to be that like Shield was like the bad guy the whole time, and then everyone was like, holy shit! Like I remember being in that theater and be like, whoa, like that's pretty big. So I feel like it was super like cookie cutter up to that point, and then Thor: The Dark World probably slipped back into that a little bit too. That movie was pretty by the books, and nothing even remotely like interesting really happened in that movie.
Dark Elves, man, they were those guys were really cool.
Dark Elves, dude, they're so lit.
Those are the best villains of the MCU.
I can hate those things.
Malekith's such a relatable villain.
I felt for him. Like,
feel
really
for him. Yeah.
He was like in a slumber for like 5,000 years, so I feel that.
Yeah, after a weekend of where I'm just sleeping the entire weekend, like it feels.
Yeah. But then, like, I feel like they finally hit their stride, like a solid stride with Guardians of the Galaxy. It was like, let's take a big risk here. Let's introduce these like C-list characters that no one gives a shit about, and they just turned it into like. I like if Guardians of the Galaxy had like their own movie universe, I'd be so happy.
Yeah.
But I also do love that they exist in this universe, and seeing them with the Avengers, or some of the Avengers in Infinity War was so awesome for me.
Yeah.
So obviously Age of Ultron kind of, I think it did slip back again into that cookie cutter formula. That movie's not very good. I just watched it again like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, wow, this actually isn't that good of a movie. But I mean, like there's like Barrett, you were saying before, like even though there's some duds, there's still things that are enjoyable out of every movie.
Yeah, there's still like fun parts, like Hawkeye. Like going back to the Age of Ultron, it was interesting to be like, yeah, this movie's still not great, but like I totally wrote Hawkeye's stuff off. Like
exactly
the first time, and then going back to it, I was like, dude, his monologue like to Scarlet Witch was fucking awesome. And, like, dude,
it is.
We're in a floating city, and I'm shooting arrows. None of this makes sense. And then he like tries to hype her up of like, but if you walk out that door, you're an Avenger. And it's such a
that's probably my favorite part of the whole movie is just him being like, yo, like I know shit's going down, but you kind of gotta help us out here. So I really like that part a lot. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange are a little bit cookie cutter too, because it's really what it is just Iron Man again.
Yeah.
In a lot of aspects. I mean, obviously not the exact same thing. But I would say like the last 6 movies, that's where I'm starting to see like, I don't know, it's so hard to like explain. I'm starting to see like just risks, I guess you could say. Like in a way, like they're risks. Like with Guardians 2, like I mean, I didn't really assume for that movie to be as good as it was. Like a lot of people consider the first Guardians really, really good, like better than the second one, but I really like the second one a lot because I kind of connect with like that storyline,
like real quick, like I honestly think it was a thing where it's like the trailers kind of like messed up that movie for you. It did for me, because like I remember like watching that movie and like seeing the trailers for it, being really excited for it, going to the movie theater, watching that movie, really enjoying it. But like I think like the trailers revealed like a whole bunch of jokes and like how certain things was playing out. So like like I know that joke is coming. Okay, Baby Groot, that's fine. But like after like rewatching it again, after like not seeing it for years, like since the theaters, and like watching it again, or a year I should say, but like after watching it again, like like the jokes hit so much harder for me because
Yeah.
like because I forgot all about them and
Yeah,
like
because you weren't being oversaturated by all the marketing for
yeah,
it. Like,
exactly.
you start to appreciate like, oh, now that I haven't heard it 500 times in the last 3 days. Like, yeah, like this is a
Yeah.
funny joke, and yeah,
Yeah, and the
And, like,
emotions in that movie too. So everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
But
then-
continue. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Another thing, like those last like 5 movies that we've got is been great because, like I said, it doesn't really. It's not the same story that we've seen so many times before. Like with Homecoming, the reason why I like Homecoming so much is because it's like you already know who Spider-Man is. Like we don't need to do this bullshit again, where it's like, oh, he got bit, and then his uncle died and all that stuff. Like I've already seen that 5 times already. So let's just make a Spider-Man story, and it turned out to be fucking awesome. So that's why I like that. Black Panther is obviously not like super deep or anything like that, but there's like a lot of emotional things in that movie that are like really, really good. Like that's just like a really good quality movie. So I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I feel like for a while Marvel had like this formula, but like now it's more so like let's take some risks. And I know a lot of people have also complained about that too. Oh, they're not taking enough risk. Like people aren't dying and all this stuff. But I feel like with Infinity War, obviously we've had some characters pass away. So it's like, I mean, what are they going to do next? Who else are we going to lose? So I feel like the risks are finally starting to come because of you watching these last 19 movies. You're investing your time with these characters, and now they're going to be like, well, let's do the Walking Dead or Game of Thrones trick on them and just start killing everyone off. So.
Cause it's one of those things, like going back to the sort of TV comparison here, where like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was like, "This is the season finale of the MCU so far." Like the reason why we haven't gotten so many deaths is because this was all building to this event where I'm pretty sure they would probably had planned for a while of like, we need as many, like we can't kill people off because we need as many characters as we can to fucking kill and like have it mean something. So you spend enough time with these characters so it matters. Like if you kill, even if they're side characters in like the first movie that they're in, it's not going to be as emotionally resonant as it would be to see them in a couple of movies, have a couple of moments where you think they're going to go, but they're still around. And then like when they really go, you're like, oh my God, like that. I didn't want them to go. I wasn't ready. And with the formula, like, there was definitely at first Marvel wanted to have a lot of control over what each movie was doing, like specific things. And it had to like sort of be like your solid, like, basic Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Like they're trying to recreate Iron Man almost every time. And like sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. And I think they really saw, I really think of like, it was Winter Soldier, Guardians 1 like really gave them a message of like, oh, we trusted like artists, and like we trusted these guys to tell their own story, and we weren't like the reason why people hated Iron Man 2 when it first came out was because Iron Man 2 like felt like it was created to serve other movies. It felt like a setup to something that we weren't going to get for another couple of years. So I think they sort of, after those 2 movies being so good, and then Avengers 2, where Joss Whedon was they were looking at him to like do all of the main Avengers movies. And I think like the reaction to that movie, and then like him wanting to leave after that movie, I think was also like a big eye opener to them of like, they didn't trust him enough to like let him tell his story. They're like, okay, you can like do some of this stuff, but like we need you to do this, 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 and this, and like, oh, you need to tease this for later and whatnot. And I feel like there's got to be a better balancing act, and I feel like they realized that too. Like they let Taika Waititi do his weird Ragnarok shit, and then they're like, okay, but like, is it cool if like you don't have to make it a big plot point, but just at least tease like the Tesseract thing and Thanos' ship at the end? Like that's all you got to do, and like just do whatever, because they're starting to trust they're people now. And like another big example here is Ant-Man. You know, they were trying to pigeonhole Edgar Wright of like, hey, we like your style, but we need to like fit it into this tube. And that's why like halfway through he was like, all right, I'm out. Like you guys are trying to be way too controlling. So I feel like they're letting people start to like, they're starting to take their hand off the wheel and let other people control it. And you really see that in phase 3. And that's why I think phase 3 is without a doubt the best phase, because, you know, like Civil War, like granted, like there's a lot of build up to that, but you know, I think they trusted the Russo brothers and the writers, Christopher McFeely and the other dude. They've basically been writing. They wrote a bunch of the movies so far.
They wrote Dark World. Did you know that?
I did know that. That was their first one, so they did not start off on the right foot. But then they went on to do Winter Soldier, and then they went on to do Civil War, and then they also wrote Infinity War. So
I think they did the first Cap movie too. Actually,
they might have been part of the. They might have done the entire Cap
like
trilogy.
That. Yeah.
And so where was I going here? And so you really see it in phase 3 because, you know, a lot of, aside from Civil War, almost all of these movies have no big stakes within the universe itself. And even Civil War isn't that like big of, like, it's not like earth shattering, like all these people are going to die sort of thing. It's just like this conflict between a group of friends, you know, and like Doctor Strange was a little bit more cookie cutter, like, oh, this big giant beast is going to come and take over Earth or whatever. And so that's where I feel like Doctor Strange almost falls a little short. Doctor Strange does feel like a phase 1 movie, a really good phase 1 movie, but I don't think the quality of the rest of the phase 3 movies, because it felt a little more pigeon-held, you know, like you really do see like the Marvel sort of textbook flow to it. It is Iron Man all over again, but like with cool mystic shit, but not enough of the cool mystic shit. And then like, what was after Doctor Strange?
Guardians 2.
Guardians 2. Like, even though Ego's plan was to take over like all of these planets and stuff, like you don't really get that sense of urgency and stakes because it's more of a family matter between him and Star-Lord than it is of like, they don't really focus on the whole taking over the world, like universe aspect, you know? And like that one was like very personal and very like just closed off as its own story. And especially so with Homecoming, you know, like that is the perfect example of like, it's not like New York is being invaded or anything. It's just like, my girlfriend's dad likes to rob people, you know, like that's all it is. And Thor Ragnarok, I would say it the same. It was like, that was just like this, all of these feel like one-off stories. And I feel like that's why they're so good, because we can focus on like not trying to build, you know, like a long story. It's about just building these characters for character development's sake, you know? And that's why I think it's so good. And I honestly feel like after Avengers 4, which I personally believe will be the last hurrah of the original Avengers, because again, spoilers for Infinity War, they do sort of the 180, or before this movie, they were really teasing heavily that the like original, like Thor, Cap, and Tony were all going to die. And it was actually the flip where all of the original Avengers are all still alive. And I think they did that I think they absolutely did that for a reason, because I think Avengers 4 is going to be the last hurrah of the original Avengers. And then we get like our sort of second sort of phase of Avengers with Spidey and Captain Marvel and whatnot. But I think even after Avengers 4 and we get like our next group of Avengers, I feel like we're not going to get this whole like leading up to a big thing. I think they might continue down the path of like, let's just do like these just little stories that we can sort of build these characters and make them interesting and make them relatable. I don't know if they'll ever lead up to something as big as this again. I think they're really going to just have each story segmented after this, which I'm very down for, because they've been doing it for the last 2 years, and it's all of these movies have been really, really good.
So this show is normally to stay on topic on this one thing, but like I just want to bring up something really fast. Barrett, do you remember that bet you made with Alex?
I do. He texted me about it earlier, and I said, "What bet?" I had signed nothing. There was To give context, I drunkenly made a bet last time I was on Irrational Passions that I was convinced that Thor, Cap, and Tony were all gonna die. We're all gonna be dead at one point. I was convinced that like they would probably all die and then get brought back with a time stone or something. But that never happened, and so the bet I made was like, that's gonna happen, and if I win this bet, Alex has to
Play Deadpool.
Alex has to play Deadpool, the video game. And if Alex wins the bet, I have to finish Jack 2. But here's the thing: in his side bet that he wrote, which I had not signed, there's no legal document out there. He wrote Jack as GACK2. So I don't know what that game is. I've never heard of that game. So I guess I'll look for that game and I'll try to beat it, but I don't know if it exists. But Jack 2, I guess I don't have to play that one because that's not just spelled differently. I'm really trying to get out of this bet, guys. The game is really bad.
So I want to talk about like a character who's been from the beginning and is obviously at the end right now, still with us. Tony Stark. Just like, if you really think about it, like ever since Avengers, he pretty much hasn't been the same type of person anymore, and like he's been going through a lot of like different like his character flaws are really showing more. Obviously, and like he's going through like so many different growths, and like some people say even he's the villain sometimes during certain movies and certain aspects. So what have you been? What do you feel about Tony Stark from like the way you felt from when you first saw the MCU, and then like where he's at right now?
Really cocky at first. Obviously that's how Iron Man 1 starts out, is just him being really overconfident with everything. And then obviously things change when he gets captured by the terrorists and they're like, you need to build us this bomb. And I love like the interaction between him and Jensen, I think that's his name. And just kind of like how he's like, yeah, this isn't a joke. Like, this is a real thing that's happening. I need to get out of here. I need to survive. And then just like when he gets back, he's like, we're not doing this anymore. Like, I saw people, like innocent people die, soldiers die because of, them getting a hold of like my weapons. And I mean, I feel like that's obviously where there's the big turning point, just like right out of the gate. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously cocky again in Iron Man 2. And, but I think it might be kind of a mask in that movie because he knows that something's wrong because of the poison in his blood. And then with, Avengers, obviously him putting the nuke through the wormhole, and, that's probably a life-changing thing. That's like super scary. So that's another reason why I really like Iron Man 3, is because he's still like dealing with that. He's still dealing with the aftermath, and he's putting so much faith in this thing that he created that he doesn't believe in himself. And then you finally, that's another reason why I really like the movie, is that you don't really see him a lot in the Iron Man suit at all. And he's kicking ass like without the suit. And I think that's another thing that kind of comes back in Homecoming, where he's like, you're nothing,
you're nothing without the suit.
Yeah, you're nothing without the suit, because he knows that he can do it without the suit, and Peter should be able to do it too. So, I mean, he's constantly learning from his mistakes. And that was like, I was thinking about this like a couple weeks ago when I was watching Civil War, and I was like, man, I mean, do you think he feels guilty? Like, obviously he feels guilty because that lady's son was there in Sokovia, like when he, when they dropped the city on top of the planet, obviously. But do you think he feels guilty for everything else? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just weird because he was the cause of that. Like, I just don't feel like he really realizes that, and I feel like he's trying to kind of pass blame because Ultron was his baby, and then Ultron is the reason why that all happened. So I don't know. I might just be overthinking it or something, but in Civil War, it's weird to see him be like, against everyone when, everyone just went along with what he was telling them to do. He's like, he was the one that was leading everyone to go up against Ultron. So I don't know. It's a weird thought, but it's interesting to see his character arc and where he is now. So
for him, it's always been about accountability. Like that's what the first Iron Man is all about. He sees that, his weapons are being dealt onto the table, and that makes him realize like, oh, it's not just these guys who have these weapons and are using them for destruction. Like the government uses this, and like people are using these weapons to just kill each other. And he, like when he comes back from originally, and he has that press conference, and he's like sitting down, he's eating the burger and stuff. He's like, he immediately says like, hey, like we're moving away from this, because he doesn't want to be associated with that. He doesn't want to take that responsibility, or not even that, but I think he's using his responsibility to be like, hey, no, like we need to stop doing this. We need to stop catering to this type of market. And so he has always been about like, we have to be accountable for the actions that we take. And that plays heavily into his motivation for Civil War later on, where, I don't think he feels, I still feel like at the end of the movie, he was like, he was right. Like he does team up with Cap and Bucky at the end, because he realizes that, it wasn't Bucky who was really a part of this whole thing. He learns like the villain's plan, basically, right? But I feel like when it comes to the Accords, I feel they never really address it at the end, but I think he was still of the mindset of like, no, like we need to be accountable for what we're doing. And I think, and not to say that I agree with him completely on that part, because again, they would have to like answer to someone, and people have agendas, which is Steve's whole thing. And his arc is interesting, especially like they do it like, this is one of the cool parts of Avengers 2 actually, is that the Scarlet Witch is the one who says it, like he will be his own undoing. Like he is so obsessed with he is sort of the like Shield in Winter Soldier, where they're like trying to stop crime before it even happens, and Steve is like, yo, that's fucked up. Like you gotta like let people just live and be people. Like the punishment comes after the crime.
Yeah.
And I feel like the reason like Tony has had such a self-destructive path is because he is akin to that. He is trying to, set up for like to prepare for the worst, and then he ends up creating the worst with like Ultron. And like I really think like in a weird way in Infinity War, he feels like, even though it really has nothing to do with him at all, I feel like he almost feels responsible that Thanos is coming, because he saw it in his vision, right, in Avengers 2, where he had that sort of nightmare about like what his worst fear was, and it was them in space, and like the Chitauri are all around, and all of his friends are dead. And you like at the end of Infinity War, like that basically happens. It's not the same characters, but you see all of the people besides Nebula dissolve, and you see that he has that moment, and she's like, oh my god, he just lived his like worst fear, and it like he has such an interesting arc and such a like fascinating just like character development. And I think like they developed his character very, very well, but not as good as Captain America, because Captain America is the best boy, and no one will ever be able to convince me otherwise.
A little disappointed he didn't get too much in Infinity
Yeah.
War.
Yeah, it was like 5 minutes in the movie, and then they're like, no Wakanda fight. I was like, what
I
the
was actually
fuck?
pretty bummed about that.
It
Yeah.
was like they like him and Bucky like hug, and I'm like, no, that needed to be a way bigger moment where they reunite. Like Bucky leaves at the end of Civil War, and it was like sort of sad of like I need to like get fixed, and like I'm gonna freeze myself, and like it might be a while, and so like the fact that they're back, and Bucky is fully back as Bucky, not like a crazy Winter Soldier person, and yeah, that moment totally that's like Infinity War, I think, is without a doubt the most comic book event movie ever. Like watching that movie reminds me of like reading Civil War, reading fucking like Infinity War or Infinity Gauntlet, like in the best and worst ways, you know, like in the best ways where like these characters are together and they're interacting in ways that are hilarious and like
then you give like a half a panel to it and not like expand it.
but then like worst times where I feel like, you know, you don't get like enough of some characters, right? Like we got a lot of Gamora, which I get like was for Thanos' character, but like maybe we could have cut down some of those scenes to get a little more time with some of these other people that have been around for the 18 movie run, you know, and there were some interesting choices. But yeah, it's a comic book crossover event in the best and worst ways. But anyway, like I was saying, Tony Stark, pretty great character.
Speaking of Thanos, like the straight up, like, can you? I like for some reason I don't know why. Like I mean I know why, but like you know, fucking like what 18 movies, him just sitting in a chair and like all you expect him to be like some character, to some bad guy just like, hey, I'm bad, here I am, let's fucking do this. Like that's all you expect, but you get so much more.
Yeah.
In like the most interesting way too. It's oh my god, it's so good.
It's one of he is the best villain because in a way he's not a villain almost. Like he's fighting people and he's killing people whenever he fucking wants to and whatnot, but like his goal, right, is like in his view he's like, even I feel like you see it, he never says it, and this is like props to Josh Brolin doing like the CGI acting where you just see it on his face sometimes, like even at the end when he does it and he snaps his fingers and half of all kind disappears, you see that like he still has that burden on him though. Like he's like, yeah, a lot of people are gonna lose a lot of loved ones like I did, and it's gonna suck, but like it's gonna make things better, you know, and it's gonna like people will like humanity and all fucking creatures or whatnot, like everybody will survive because of this, you know, and that's the end goal, you know, and you really see that like he's not malicious to anybody, you know, like he's
basically Captain America.
Yeah, let's put a pin in that. I want to get back to that conversation.
Okay, sure.
But like it's fascinating because he's never malicious to anybody. Like he fucks over. He's a dick to Loki mainly, I think, because you know Loki tries to kill him, and also like he sent Loki on a mission and Loki failed. But like the moment that I knew that Thanos was the best villain was his conversation with Tony at the end. Like after he stabbed Tony, and he's like, you know, like half of humanity will still be around after all of this, and like I really hope they remember you. Like we've been fighting and you've been pissing me off for like the last 20 minutes, but like I know who you are and I know like what you try to do for your people, and I like recognize that and I respect it, you know. And yeah, he is so fascinating. So let's go back to this. How do you see that he is basically Captain America?
A man who has values, his own values, like, you know, from a different point of view, obviously, but like a man with values who sticks to those values no matter what.
Yeah, that's yeah. I would say like the reason like I don't really see it that way is just because of like, yeah, they are on like sort of the values is a good comparison, but really when it comes to like he thinks he is allowed to like make this decision, even though he doesn't choose who dies, he still is the one who decides for all of people.
Sure.
Like this needs to happen. Whereas Cap is on the polar opposite side of that. I would actually say that Thanos is more like Tony, which is I don't I think they did on purpose, and I think they like that's not a mistake that they have that conversation at the end where he respects Tony because he is like you carry a burden to protect your people, and you'll go to no end to do that. You know, like he probably knows about Ultron, and like in some way, shape, or form, like he probably has heard of that story of like, yeah, it almost like fucked over his people, but like he was insane enough to try something to help out like Earth, you know. And I think I don't think it was a mistake that Thanos and Tony sort of like had that moment at the end, because I honestly think that like them going all out to think of like the long game of humanity and making the decisions for them, I think makes him more like Tony than it is Cap. Because Cap is all about like the people need to be free and free thought and not being super ruled over and whatnot. So
yeah, Tony does things without people's consent.
Yeah.
Like he just does it because he feels that it's the best thing to be done. But like Cap is more so like, I'm by the book. This is the rule. And you can obviously see that in Civil War where he's like, okay, this is where I don't agree with the rules. Which is why I love Civil War so much, is because it's Cap going off the book. And so, yeah, I think with Thanos' character, it's like he's doing it because he thinks it's the right thing to do, but he's not asking anyone else if it's good or not. He's just going to do it because it's what he believes in. So
yeah,
he doesn't give a fuck if you think it's good or not. He's just going to do it. So,
and he has like no personal gain from it. He's just like, it just needs to be done, you know, like
he's a man on a mission.
Like everything that he could have gained from that kind of plan was already lost in his home planet, you know, like he lost everything and sort of made his own family after that. But he saw like what not doing that sort of plan did to his people, and so he was like, yo, I gotta save all living things at this point. Like he is the best example of like what makes a good villain is that they see themselves absolutely as the hero of the story. And that's why like I think Loki is a close one earlier on. I think really in like Thor, even though like Thor 1 isn't like great MCU overall movie, but like there's some really smart things that they do in that. And like at the end, Loki's not trying to, you know, really like kill Odin or kill Frigg or anything. He's just like, he's trying to come out as this hero where like he lets the frost giants in and he kills Laffy, and to show that like, oh, like I can be the hero too. And I feel like that's the closest we ever got to it. And I think like you get similar things like Killmonger, who definitely is like that one. He's more on the fence about, because he definitely does feel like he does need to help other people like in other countries. But I feel like the way he does it, he knows that it's like, yeah, we're gonna like fuck people up, and like I'm not pretending to be a hero or anything.
There's a lot of hate behind his. There's a lot of hate behind his motivations.
Like I am unapologetically like going to do this, and I don't give a fuck what people think. Whereas with Thanos, I think Thanos is the best villain because of like he is without a doubt the hero of his story, you know, and they in this movie like they do a good job of making you think of from his perspective, and you're like, oh shit, like I get where he's coming from here. So yeah, Thanos is cool as shit.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's baller.
So let's talk about which movie is your favorite? Like out of all of the MCU, like which one's your favorite?
I gotta say, still Winter Soldier. I've only seen Infinity War once. I was gonna go see it yesterday, but things just came up, so we decided not to go. Um, but I mean, I still need time to digest that. And talking about it with people is definitely helping me to be like, that was a really fucking good movie. But still, for me, you know, Winter Soldier, it's still the twist. Like I said, I had no idea that was going to happen. I've read the Winter Soldier comic run, and it's a little bit different in there. It's
absolutely.
It's pretty much it's pretty much just Cap against Bucky. So with Winter Soldier, I really enjoy espionage. I love stealth games. I know there's really no stealth in Captain America Winter Soldier, but
there's like the spy sort of.
Yeah, there's like that 80s vibe like you were talking about, like espionage. Like there's just a really cool vibe in that movie that I really like a lot. So but yeah, I mean, like I don't know, there's just so many cool things that happen in that movie, and like him meeting Falcon and like the relationship between him and Black Widow, I really, really love a lot. They're like best friends, and I think that's good. It's good to have a badass best friend. So but yeah, that's for now, that's definitely my favorite, and Infinity War is growing on me the more and more I talk about it. So
yeah, for me, I'm the same. I think Winter Soldier is still my favorite, because of like, not just because like the comic booky twists that happen, which, you know, no comic book fan could have seen, because I don't think that was ever really done in a comic book before that movie. They just recently did it in the comics, where Steve Rogers is like, "Hail Hydra!" Here are the comic book writers trying to be edgy and fuck up Captain America.
Edgy. Nick Spencer's like,
"Yep,
like
really dumb." But like it really it was really well done in this movie, and I it's one of those things that they claim that they were building like leading up to it, but they really weren't. There were not really any teases in any other movie that this was going to be a thing, but it really shook the foundations of, and that's like the first beat where they're like, all right, we did the cookie cutter stuff, let's throw it all away. You know, like y'all are used to Shield and you're used to Nick Fury being around and yada yada yada. We're throwing it all away, but not just that, it's the relationships that he has with everybody, you know, like meeting Falcon at the beginning, like having the work buddy relationship with Black Widow, and the sort of realization that this guy that they're hunting is his best friend. And they make up for it a bit this time around, because I feel like a good friend of mine who loves like the original Captain America run was disappointed after the first one, because he's like, they didn't really show off him and Bucky's relationship that well. Like you don't get a sense that they are like brothers in that movie, and they sort of make up for it, you know, and like the flashback where he's thinking about like right after his mom's funeral, and Bucky is like, he forgot his key, and Bucky knows where the hidden key is, and he's like, hey, like let me sleep over, like let's hang out and let's just do dumb kid shit even though we're in our 20s and whatnot, you know, like and to see that, like to see the tragedy behind it, like Captain America is, I believe, the saddest character in all of the MCU, you know, like he left an entire life and still somehow had the energy and hope to still fight for a world that he is not familiar with. You know, the last time he was fighting for a completely different world, and then he came out on the other end and everything was different, and he still had the courage to just be like, all right, like I'm going to keep doing this. And, you know, it's sad that he left behind Peggy, and they bring that back in such a human, emotional way in Winter Soldier, where you see her and she has Alzheimer's, and you see just like on his face, just like how you wish he had that life with her. And like that's what, like Winter Soldier is great because of how human it is with when it comes to Steve, and when it comes to like just the tragedy of the life he like never had. You know, his best friend at the end is trying to kill him and yelling at him like, you're my mission. And you see that like he is such a good friend, and he's so loyal of a friend that he says, you know what, if this is your mission and you have to do it, then do it. and he's like, finish it, and Bucky does go in like for one final blow, and then the ship falls apart. But there's just every time I watch that moment where he's beating down on Steve, and he's like, "You're my mission." He's like, "Then finish it because I'm with you until the end of the line." It gives me goosebumps, and it like makes me tear up every single time because that friendship is so important to them, to him, and that sort of message really resonates with me personally a lot. So there's just it is half like fucking cool espionage spy shit where they go down to the lair, and the dude from the first Captain America movie is a computer now, and it's Arnim Zola, and he's like, I've created Hydra and Shield, and it's so like cool comic book moments, but then it gets so emotional and human, and it's just the perfect meld of those two things, and it's just such a great movie. I don't know if they'll ever top that one for me. And right now, where I'm after coming out of Infinity War, the first time I had it a little like not super low, but it was definitely like around this like 7 or 8. But the more I talk about it with people, like after seeing it a second time, it's definitely in the top 5 for me. Just because of it's so impressive how they pulled it off, and like all the payoffs of seeing these characters meet and the devastation behind it. And like, there's the big conversation I think with Infinity War right now is like, oh, like we know they're going to retcon all of these in the next movie and stuff, but it's still like the weight of it and the fact that they went there. It was one of those endings that I feel like most of us were like, that's too easy of an ending for them to do. Like it was an obvious way to end it. Like they'll never do it, but then they did it, and that was still heavy as shit when they decided to go there. And the more I talk about Infinity War, the more I love it.
I know, man, dude. Like every time, I'm right there. For me, it speaks kind of to like the kind of person that I am, but like my favorite is Thor Ragnarok, like without a doubt.
It's such a stylish movie, man.
Like even though Infinity War fucks up that movie like almost immediately, at the same time it also enhances it. With Rocket talking to Thor, like that, like that just brings so much depth to his character. But yeah, like Thor Ragnarok, I love like basically like every minute of that movie. Like I mean, it's all goofy and funny and stuff like that as well, but like it's also has like a lot of style that I love. A lot of the soundtrack's amazing. Not just the Led Zeppelin, but like just the score in general is just like really great for that movie.
Like when they're on the Grand Master's planet, and you're just like, just the super like 80s space vibe it gives off with the
synthesizer.
It's so fucking cool.
Yeah, I just love the way that movie is shot. This everything about it is there's multiple parts in that movie where you can just like put it on pause, and that's a painting you could just have in your room, and it just looks stylish on there. Like the Valkyrie scene when Thor has his like lightning going on, it's like this, like it's just so beautiful. Like that movie just speaks to me, and like it's so many different levels, and also it's hilarious. So like that's all that. But like
Ghost. I want to give a shout out to Guardians Volume 2 because that movie every time makes me cry like a fucking baby.
Like it's almost like it almost like, because like it's an advantage and also a disadvantage that like it's part of this because it's like it feels like, oh man, this could be like, it feels like it'd be like the next Star Wars or something like for me, like because it's so interesting, it's so different, it's so new, but like it's also held into this like bubble that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's like you're only gonna get like 3 sequels or 3 movies and that's it. So it's like I want more out of it, but we'll eventually have to let go of the current Guardians team. I feel like we'll probably get Star-Lord in some regular aspect, maybe like more on like the Avengers team later, but the ending of Guardians 2 like always just fucks me up on an completely other level than I think any other movie does. So I just
like Chris Pratt's acting at the end there with him and Yondu is like really good.
But like his monologue, like standing over Yondu's body, and he's I guess I actually, like, my dad was pretty much like David Hasselhoff, you know, and like it's a joke, but it's also just like he realizes like how much of a father he had in Yondu, and then like what really gets me is actually Rocket, and seeing like Rocket let this person go who he realizes that like they are basically the same person, and like how they treat people, and like you see that a lot with Rocket at the end, where he is being super self-reflective of like one day when he goes, like he hopes that his friends will like remember him and sort of, you know, celebrate his legacy and whatnot. And you see that where he's like saying like, man, everybody still came, like even though like he stole batteries that he didn't need and stuff, and Quill looks over and is like, oh yeah, buddy, yeah, they still came. And like it's not a mistake. Like that movie is very much like, yeah, it's mainly about Quill and Ego, but I really think it's just as much of a Rocket movie. And you really see that because the last shot of the movie is Rocket crying. And I think they did that on purpose. So yeah, shout out to Guardians 2 for fucking me up all the time.
Before we just talk about Infinity War to death, Liza was supposed to be like on this show as well, and like Andrew, you had like some stuff for her.
Yeah, Liza and I talked about it together, and we were like, yeah, we pretty much have the same thoughts already. So
okay, cool.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Okay, I just didn't want to. I wanted to get her to take some stuff too. So I was meant to make sure. So Infinity War, boys, like it's still like on my mind like every day. It's been fucking crazy with that movie.
I'm very tempted to go see it after this. It's 9:00 right now. I looked at my phone. I'm like, the latest showing is 10:45. So yeah,
maybe, dude, it might be worth it.
Like, dude, I gotta be up at 6 a.m. for work, but you know, it could be worth it.
Yeah, like
fam.
Like I was trying to go to right after work with my nephew, and like just like I was like, oh, like we'll at least get like some kind of good seats in there, right? Like, no, everything is sold out everywhere. I can't just walk into a theater and like just get into it. Like god damn, like this movie is like just killing it everywhere, and it's like it's so good.
Yeah, like it again, like I've had several conversations with a bunch of friends about this movie in the last 2 days, and I feel like it was crazy how like it was like a 1-2 punch of God of War and then Infinity War, where it was just like God of War was the one thing where I was like, I want to talk about it with everybody, and I still do, and then Infinity War comes out like a fucking week later, and it's like, oh shit, there's too much to talk about right now. It's almost a century over, and like it's just the movie does so many cool things. Of like the one thing I really want to shout out is Red Skull. Like Red Skull's appearance was just like, my friends and I had been theorizing for years that he was going to return. That like he somehow comes back in Winter Soldier with a fucking Infinity Stone or some bullshit, or he was going to be in the Collector's Lab in Guardians of the Galaxy. And like we're like, he's got to come back, and then we just gave up on it. We're like, okay, like we're never gonna see this character again, and he fucking finally shows up in this one, and I yelled in the theater when I first saw it.
I audibly gasped. I'm like,
everyone.
I said out loud, "Holy shit!" and a couple people like laughed at me because it was just one of those like that moment right there was like peak. That's the moment I realized was like, this is the movie equivalent to a comic book crossover event of like, it's fucking insane that this villain from Captain America 1, who's like this World War II Nazi dude, is in space and is like sort of like the guide of the Soul Stone, talking to this big purple man and his green adopted daughter. It was like, what the fuck is happening right now? It was so cool and dumb at the same time, and just like fan servicey comic book bullshit that I fucking love.
But that's the shit that is like, that's like you said, at that moment it's like, oh, this movie gets it. You fucking get me, because like it's something you didn't even have to do. You didn't even have to do. You couldn't even get Hugo Weaving to do it, but like you just get like, because of course I didn't know at the time, but like, you know, I see Red Skull and it's like, it's fucking Red Skull. So it's like I'm just it's so good, dude.
Easily done the whole thing where like that cloaked figure could have just been a cloaked figure and it just like
exactly.
But they went all out, and just the whole like, hey, like we like fans want to see this character, like let's just do it and get weird with it and not like have it really make sense, and it doesn't need to. It's just a cool like get hyped of like, holy shit, this character still exists somehow. And like you see like, and the way they tease of like that he has to kill Gamora is really good, where he's like, I was cursed to never be able to get this stone, and you're like, why can he never get this stone? And then you realize, like, and then he says later, it's like you have to let go of something that you love. And knowing Red Skull and who Red Skull is, like, he doesn't fucking love anything. That dude was ready to blow up the entire fucking Earth. So yeah, it was so fucking cool. Like that's like one of the like underrated moments I think in this movie. It's just like, what, how, why, how, and fucking awesome. And then the other thing is just Doctor Strange is he was the OP in this movie. Just like he was so fucking cool in this movie. Just like
he was better in his own. He was better in this movie than he was in his own.
Yeah, like Doctor Strange the movie is a little disappointing in some aspects for me personally, but just like the fucking cool stuff that he does in this movie. Like I feel like at the beginning he's just doing some basic stuff with Wong to like really lead up, like build up to the back and forth with him and Thanos was so fucking cool. Or like he throws like the fucking like glass dimension, whatever. I don't know, a bunch of made up words. Where he throws that at Thanos and like Thanos breaks it and like throws it back at him and he turns it into a bunch of like butterflies.
I remember that part. That's cool.
And then like the fucking where like the arms come out and then you like just the Naruto Shippuden thing where he copies himself a million times. You're like, holy shit, this is cool. It's fucking like wraps Thanos around with all the ropes and it's like so fucking comic booky in just like the best ways.
Yeah. For me, it was a lot of the little things. Like I know that we talked about this the other day, Nabeshin, but like with Winter Soldier picking up Rocket and them doing like the twirl around with the machine guns, I was like, yes, that right there. That's what I live for. Like that's the comic book.
That's what I live for.
And I'm like, Rocket Raccoon and Winter Soldier just did a twirl around with machine guns and killed a bunch of aliens. Like. That's
and awesome. Then Rocket made a joke about stealing his fucking arm, which is like
a joke unless you had seen Guardians 1, so that was a better payoff right there.
Oh, God, it's so good.
Yeah, there's just like the little things that I really like. Like the other day when I did kind of give you that little reminder of Cap and Black Panther running at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember if it was Blessing who actually pointed out that Cap was running on his left. And then maybe he had said I'm left to Black Panther while they were running together or whatever, but I thought that was really cool too. It's just like a bunch of little stuff, you know, Spider-Man crawling away from Mantis and she was trying to like grab him, like just
like, don't put your eggs
don't put your eggs in me or whatever. It's like just little shit like that, like constant stuff.
Man, it is so like good. The fucking like you're one sandwich away from being fat, and then he's like, all right, I'm gonna commit. I'm gonna get a Bowflex. I'm gonna get some dumbbells. You know you can't eat dumbbells, right? It's like just fucking small moments like that were so good.
Yeah.
I am Groot. Oh, I took Groot as an elective, so I know how to say
Steve Rogers. And like it was like there wasn't a joke, at least that I can remember, like just watching it earlier today. There wasn't a joke that didn't land for me. You know, like everything was just fucking peak each character, you know, just like the little moment with War Machine and Hulk where they walk into Wakanda. He's like, do we bow? Like he's like, oh yeah, and then he starts bowing. He's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop being weird, you know? Like just like the little moments that they just get these characters now. Like that is such a War Machine. Like that is Don Cheadle from Iron Man 2, you know?
Yeah,
like, and they were still able to bring that humor in, and like. That humor is in the same movie as Drax being like, I have mastered being so silent and so slow, become invisible. And it's just like how it blows my mind that they are really able to pull off the comedy in this movie to have a balancing act with the comedy, and then how fucked up this movie gets.
Oh yeah, it's so dark. It is so fucking dark.
Yeah.
It's actually like crazy.
I'm almost terrified to like let my nephew see this movie just because it's like he really likes Spider-Man, so it's like so
when Tony's holding Peter, it's like holy shit.
God, yeah. I cried this time around. I like sort of teared up the first time we saw it, but it was more of like I was more just shocked at the end of like the first
It's
feeling,
sad,
and then
dude.
seeing it again,
really
and this time
scared.
around where you know it's gonna happen. So it's just like when he's like, I don't want to go, like I don't want to go. I was like, fuck me up, fam.
Scared. Like, it's like Homecoming scared too. Like where
Yeah.
they're all
Like you're reminded that like, oh, this is a kid. He's a sophomore in high school.
oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
So let's close it off on theories. Like, how do you think Avengers 4 is gonna be? Like, what's even the title gonna be? Like, I know most of Andrew's theories. So like, Barrett, like, hit us up with what you think.
So before seeing this movie, the title I was convinced Avengers 4 was gonna be was the New Avengers, but after watching this one, I realized that Avengers 4 is really like we thought that this movie was going to be the send off for a lot of the OG Avengers. But now realizing that like all of the OG Avengers are the ones that are still alive, and a couple of like added characters and whatnot, but like the core Avengers team from Avengers 1 is all there.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think this next movie to the core is going to be about their last like hurrah together and their last like mission together. And so a lot of theories has been like the big one that's come out in the last couple of days is Avengers Endgame, which I like. I feel like it might be a little too basic because they've said like the title for this is going to be like spoilery, and I feel like Endgame is like sort of spoilery, but like not at the same time. Like you sort of figure even before seeing this movie that Avengers 4 was sort of going to be like the last Avengers for this generation of Avengers, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Avengers Endgame, is fine. It's cool. It's a cool name. They've been so secretive about it. Like I don't know if that'll really be the level of. I don't know if that name will really live up to the hype that they're really giving this title.
Yeah.
I was also convinced that it was going to be Avengers Secret Invasion, because I thought like they really in the like sort of press tour that they did, like the Russo brothers were very adamant about like this is its own movie. Like this and Avengers 4 are going to be completely separate movies, and they're sort of right. They like sort of right in a way of like I think the sort of tone and like the story beats like this. Even though it sort of ends on a cliffhanger, the story actually sort of resolves, just not the way we want to at the end of Avengers 3. So I was really convinced when they were like, oh, like these are going to be two separate movies. You assume that like, oh, it's going to be resolved in the good way. And so I was convinced at the end of Avengers 3, we were going to get some sort of like tease to Secret Invasion and have like the Skrulls come in, because Skrulls will be a thing in Captain Marvel. So I wanted to see them like sort of be like another big bad, which I guess we'll just get in the Captain Marvel movie. But now I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. Yeah. I just want to see it. I just want to see the movie already. This year is going to be so fucking long.
Were you on blackout, Barrett, the entire time? I was just curious.
No, Alyssa was actually. Alyssa had not seen a trailer at all before seeing it. So a lot of like the theories of like the original dudes dying, like I gave her the context. Like after we finally saw the movie, she was like, "Why did you think these guys were going to die?" I was like, "Well, in the trailer, like the shots that they use is like the shot of Tony like spitting up blood, the shot of Cap like holding the gauntlet like from Thanos, and like the shot of Thor like his skull being like crushed by Thanos." So like they really teased hard in like in those trailers, and so she really went deep into like just going all blackout.
That's awesome.
I think it fucked her up in some ways that she was not expecting. I think overall, like I think she really loves the movie, even though it breaks her heart at the end when Black Panther. I'm pretty sure her favorite character in the MCU is now gone. She's like, "What the fuck? We got him for one movie, he's gone now." But yeah, I wasn't super worried about being all blackout. I was definitely worried for like the first week when people had started seeing the movie. I was like, all right, I need
Yeah, me too.
really be careful and not go into comment sections and whatnot, even for comment sections of things that are totally not related, because you know those fuckers who are like going into comments about bullshit God of War.
Yeah, Liza found
and they're
some
like,
too.
I'm gonna sneak in these spoilers.
Yeah, that was
she spoiled? Liza?
No, she found. So we had seen the movie Thursday night, but
okay.
She was like in a Facebook comment thing or whatever, something completely unrelated, and then someone just went in like the comment thread and just put a bunch of Infinity War spoilers, and it was like not even related to that at all whatsoever.
Dude.
And it's like, oh, you fucking troll! Like seriously. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I thought that was really stupid of someone to do that. I just hate people that spoil stuff. And like that was another thing that I tried to do too, Barrett, where I was like, I don't want to tweet about Infinity War because then some random person on Twitter could just
DM me or respond.
If I tweet about it, then I'm fucked. Like I'm just not even gonna do it. Just just
I would only tweet about it in like vague terms. I wouldn't use like the words Infinity War or anything. Like I think the closest I got to was the picture I tweeted out with Alyssa and I at the movie, and I didn't even say Infinity War in there. I just said 10 damn years. Let's fucking go. And I have like the picture of the Infinity War tickets, but like even I feel like more of like a word, the words in a tweet will come up, will have that kind of stuff come up.
Yeah,
so,
you got to be careful about that kind of stuff. Yeah, because my friend had The Force Awakens spoiled for him because he tweeted about it, and then someone commented him, and it was like, wow, that's a movie I would not want to be spoiled for me.
Yeah,
yeah, it sucks.
Your theories, Andrew?
I think I said it the other day, but my theory is that, and I don't know how it's going to be done. Like for the first time in a long time, like I said the other day as well, is I literally have no idea what's going to happen. And I like that. I like being in the dark, shafted, like just isolated from everything else. I'm like, I could theorize about this, but it could be completely wrong, or I could be right. But my theory that I'm most comfortable with, and I am more than likely wrong, is that the people who are left there who didn't vanish have to sacrifice themselves to bring back the people that did vanish. And how they go about that, I have no idea. Is Cap willing to sacrifice himself to bring Sam, who is one of his newer friends, and Bucky, who is his best friend, back from wherever they are? Tony with Peter, he's pretty much the prodigy of Tony Stark. So I don't know. It's weird. Like I haven't really thought too much about it, but I've just been like, that could be a thing. Because the end of the movie is the OG Avengers and they're just there, you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. That's all I can really say. Yeah.
I think this next movie is going to be less of a spectacle in some rights, because we're going to have way less characters in this next movie. So I think it's going to be more of a, hey, like, let's spend some time with these characters and like, let's say goodbye to them in the right way, and have them reunite one more time and whatnot. It'll still be a spectacle, but it won't be this crazy where like 25 characters are all
kind of like a Civil War kind of. I mean,
yeah,
not like in the same scale of Civil War, but
I think they're gonna tone it back a little bit, just so we get a little more personal moments with these characters before we inevitably say goodbye. Yeah. Whether it's they die or like they retire or something, but I feel like this next movie is really going to be the final hurrah for this group of Avengers. Whether or not we get more movies with them, like on a personal level later on, who knows? But like, because I'm convinced, like how well Ragnarok did, that they're going to keep doing a couple more Thor movies, and Cap might be done. I feel like Civil War might have done. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Civil War's pretty much solidified his entire arc and whatnot, and now he's just a nomad. He doesn't even really take on the Captain America mantra anymore. So, it'll be interesting to see how they reverse all of this, and like if they go as far back as bringing Gamora back and Loki and those people, like I think Loki honestly is gone. I'm always like back and forth with Gamora because it's one of those things that would like it would be so weird if she's not in Guardians 3. But it also
God.
but it also might be like they might be planning, like James Gunn has said, that Guardians 3 is the last Guardians movie with this team. You know, so it might be a thing where like Guardians 3 might be about like Gamora's gone, like we're gonna do sort of like we got to do like one more mission, but maybe after this, maybe we got to split because, you know, like we aren't complete anymore. Which I feel like might directly like lead into like a second generation of Guardians, which would naturally, I think, introduce like Nova and a couple like more like space characters and shit like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. And it's also like which stone is going to be most important with this. Like I think the common theory, like when you walk out of the theater, because it's like the last one that you really see visibly used is the time stone, right? Like Vision blows up and then he uses the time stone and he reverses everything that happened with Vision and then took out the soul stone. So I feel like the common theory is that the time stone is going to be important for the next one, but I honestly think it's really going to be the soul stone. Because you don't
stone or because Vision had the Mind Stone. That's the only reason I asked.
Well, no, I honestly think it's the Soul Stone because you never really see the Soul Stone get used, at least in like a visual sense, with the other ones. And yeah, you don't really see the Mind Stone get used either. But I think it's the Soul one because in the comics, at least, like the Soul Stone is associated with the Soul like realm and all of this stuff. So I feel like the Soul Stone is going to actually play a really important part because even Red Skull was talking about like the Soul Stone sort of has like a power over the other ones, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how do they like go back and get Thanos and all of this stuff. And it was really interesting. I was convinced that Adam Warlock was going to appear in this movie. I was convinced that it was going to be that's what Tyrion's character was going to be, was Adam Warlock, and he was going to be like a CG Adam Warlock guy, and then he ended up being that dwarf giant, really weird.
Yeah,
weird looking. I've seen it twice, and both times I'm like, I don't think I like it. It's not because I don't like him. I really like him. I think he's way too high profile of an actor to have that minuscule of a role. So that I think that's what distracted people. Like people were laughing at him when he wasn't making funny jokes or anything. Because like in our theater earlier, people were like, is that Tyrion? Like, oh my God, Tyrion's in this movie. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, it was weird. But yeah, Adam Warlock plays such a pivotal role in the comics because like Thanos succeeds and like retires and goes onto this farm, which I thought was like a cool thing that they did in the movie where like dude's living on a farm at the end. Like he's just like, he's not trying to be a ruler. He like literally just had this burden he had to like bear in his eyes that he had to do. And so I was convinced like they tease Adam Warlock at the end of Guardians 2, and someone was like, oh, that's probably just a tease for Guardians 3. I was like, I don't know, man. Like he's so important in the comics because he is the one who goes to Thanos and like takes the gauntlet from Thanos and like sort of becomes the good guy at the end of Infinity Gauntlet and then becomes the bad guy in Infinity War. And yeah, so it was weird to me that we never saw him because now the question is like, how do they find Thanos? What becomes the art? Like, I don't know. Yeah, there's so many questions, and we really have no idea what's going to happen in this next movie, which is really cool. Which I think will be funny that like there are some people who are praising this movie because they have no idea what's going to happen in the next movie, but they made a complaint about that at the end of The Last Jedi where they're like, I don't know what's going to happen in the next one. It's like, isn't that sort of cool though? Isn't it cool to end a movie and know that there's going to be a next one, but not have a bunch of fucking expectations and then build hype off of that and then have the next movie be disappointing to you no matter what? It's very interesting.
It is. It extremely is. Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen, and I'm excited to see what happens. I don't really have like any big theories, honestly. Just like I'm just ready to see what they have in store for me. Like it excites me that like this is like one of those situations where like they already did the movie already, so it's like so like you can tell like probably the quality what the third one's going to be because of like how the next one's going to be because like Infinity War is already so good, so you expect like somewhat the same quality in that one.
Yeah,
so, because like Pirates of the Caribbean 2, Pirates of the Caribbean 3 kind of
which are great movies. It's a great trilogy.
Harry Potter 2 and definitely Part 1 and Part 2 kind of the same quality, so it's like I'm expecting like somewhat the same quality for this one. So
yeah,
I'm excited for that. But yeah, that'll wrap it up, boys. Like God, like it's been a pleasure to like to really like because I've seen your tweets like over these last like 5 months or whatever, like going through these movies as well. So like I know I would have liked the movie regardless, but like rewatching all the movies again and then like just going into it like Infinity War after watching all the previous movies, so you get like all the references and like, oh, I remember him from him and all this other stuff. But like it made me like that movie like so much more just because of that. It's like it's so good, dude.
Very good movie.
But who the fuck are you people? Like Barrett, who are you?
I'm Barrett Courtney. I am a video editor, video gameplay editor at IGN, and I also produce Podcast Beyond. And you can find me on Twitter at SadBoyBarrett.
All right.
Andrew Taylor of the internet, or of the Midwest, I guess you could probably label me that, unfortunately. You can find me on Twitter at Papa Drew Bear.
All right, and I am Brian Nabeshin Jackson. Follow me on pretty much everything that's under my moniker is Nabeshin186. That's Nabeshin 186, and that has been Fresh Off the Dome. Yeah, I love doing this. I love talking to these people. It's always fun, like because it's just like this us just talking and like having a real conversation about this shit.
Nerdy stuff.
Yeah, and
nerdy stuff is fun, isn't it?
It's completely fun. It's really fun. But yeah, that's it, dude. Awesome. Like I got nothing else to say because like yeah, I got everything out of my system, which is great. Like a little side note, like so I've been watching these movies with my best friend for like all these like fucking weeks, right? And like he drops the ball like right in the week we're about to see Thor Ragnarok. So like he still hasn't seen Infinity War yet. So I had anyone to go with to go see that movie. So I went to the movie by myself. Saw that by myself, and now like I was literally dying because I had no one to talk to. But like I went on OKP a few days ago, and now I'm talking to you guys. So like I'm feeling good. I'm feeling cleansed now. So
yeah,
it's good.
Yeah. So I appreciate you guys for taking time for this. All right, but that's the show, and like we'll catch you later.